Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry says its air defense systems shot down nearly 100 Ukrainian drones on Monday night, with more than half intercepted over Russia's Belgorod region. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said on Monday that there are, quote, no longer any range restrictions, unquote, on weapons delivered to Ukraine. The Chancellor said the lifting of restrictions applies not just to German munitions, but also to British, French and American weapons. This allows Ukraine to defend itself by attacking military targets inside Russia, Merz said. For more, let's speak to DW correspondent Max Zander in Kyiv and DW's former Moscow bureau chief Juri Rescheto, who joins us from Riga, as DW is banned from reporting in Russia. Welcome to you both. Max, what could the lifting of range limits mean for Ukraine's defense?
Right, Vera. So in the past, whenever Ukraine wanted to attack or saw itself in the position where it needed to attack military targets in Russia, it would have to rely on their own weapons arsenal, their homemade weapons such as the long-range drones, for example. The Ukrainians have had Western tactical missiles, such as the American-made ATACMS, for example, or Scalp and Storm Shadow from France and the UK for quite some time now, but they came with restrictions only to be used in Ukrainian territory or Russian-occupied territory. There was a small change to that last year when the Russians crossed the border into the Kharkiv region, and later on when the Ukrainians crossed the border into the Kursk region in Russia. Then these weapons were allowed to be used to defend these troops in the border region in Russia. But it was limited to the border region only. And there was a lot of talk about Ukraine having the weapons it needs, but not being able to use them, essentially having to fight with one hand tied behind its back. And this is an idea that Friedrich Merz seems to support now also, is that the Ukrainians need to be able to defend themselves properly, as he puts it, by also attacking military targets, and military targets only in Russia. So we could see the Ukrainians using these weapons with a range of up to 300 kilometers to, for example, attack command posts, to attack logistics hubs, ammunition depots whenever there's a troop buildup, as we're seeing now across the border of the Sumy region, for example, and to engage airfields from which drones are being launched, or from which long-range bombers are taken off to attack Ukrainian cities. And this could disrupt the Russian support in the rear, and actually perhaps force them to move some of their assets out of the range of these weapons.
Juri, what have the reactions been from Moscow concerning Merz's remarks?
We've got few official reactions from Moscow so far. Kremlin spokesman Peskov called the decision to no longer have a range restriction dangerous. Foreign Office spokesman Zakharova pointed out that German Vice Chancellor Lars Klingbeil doesn't see any change, of course, regarding the range restriction. As for the range, there is no new agreement, the German politician said yesterday in Berlin. And this was hyped up by Zakharova as a rift in the new German government. Apart from that, Russia is no longer talking about so-called red lines that the West has crossed and for which the West must pay. We have heard such threats from Moscow time and again in the past. Instead, the Kremlin wants to give the impression that it is interested in peace negotiations. Putin seems to be completely satisfied with himself and his war.
Juri, Russia has also been intensifying aerial bombardment in recent days. What more do we know?
Look, Russia seems to be following a double strategy. During the day, the Kremlin talks about peace negotiations. Yesterday, Putin received the Turkish foreign minister in the Kremlin, who in turn once again offered Istanbul as a location for the next round of the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. The Kremlin has also virtually brushed off US President Trump's latest personal criticism on Putin. Trump has said that Putin has gone crazy because he is bombing Ukraine. Kremlin spokesman Peskov played this down completely and explained it is just an emotional overload. That is one part of the strategy. On the other hand, at night, missiles and drones are flying into Ukraine. Russia is escalating this war, and Russian military experts assume this country will soon be able to produce 500 drones a day. So we see a smiling Putin on television who repeatedly emphasizes Russia was forced into this war.
Max, is Ukraine preparing for the potential summer escalation that President Zelensky has been warning about?
Right. I mean, as just heard, we're seeing these aerial bombardments here every night for many nights in a row now, with growing damages, with growing injuries and fatalities. Certainly having an impact on the population. Although the Ukrainian leadership is saying that this doesn't really have any military sense from their perspective. Another thing that the Ukrainians are worried about, apart from the defending key towns in eastern Ukraine, is that there appears to be a troop buildup across the border from the Sumy region in southern Russia, in Kursk and Belgorod region, and talk of the Russian leadership to want to establish a buffer zone there. So this is something that the Ukrainians are preparing for.
DW correspondent Max Zander in Kyiv and DW Riga Bureau Chief Juri Rescheto. Thanks so much.